Hello, welcome to the first week of our contracting course. I hope you've watched the introduction video, and I've posted most of this content obviously here in Documents. If you're watching this, then it means you've found it. And I've posted assignments into the Assignments tab. I will hopefully be populating this relatively quickly, but I'm doing this in addition to my normal job, which means I'm doing it urgently in between traveling. Fortunately, I'm not going to be traveling anytime soon, or at least for the next 4 or 5 weeks, so hopefully I should get the rest of the course populated into this Blackboard relatively quickly. Our first topic is, what exactly is a contract? Well, a contract in short is something that's legally binding, generally between two people, generally in writing. Though, frankly, there's a lot of contracts that aren't necessarily in writing. For instance, if you're using a book, there's kind of an unwritten contract that you're not going to copy that book or do things with it. There's not anywhere in writing when you buy the book that you have to sign that says that you're not going to photocopy the book or disseminate it to other people, but that is essentially a contract that we have that we're not going to be doing inappropriate things. The reason we make contracts, and this is a very critical point, is we don't make contracts for when everything goes right. If everything went right all the time, then there would absolutely be no need for contracts. And frankly, in the majority of our procurements in our personal lives, things do go right most of the time. And so that's why we don't really write contracts very much in our personal lives. But the reason we write contracts is for when everything goes horribly awry. And that's when you pull out the contract and you start looking through it and say, oh, hopefully there's something in this contract that we can hang our hat on to hopefully resolve this dispute. That's very critical to understand, especially when you're in public procurement. It's also important in private procurement. For instance, real estate contracts, which I talked a little bit about in the introduction, and vehicle contracts. Those sorts of contracts, when something goes wrong, you definitely do pull out the contract and you read it and start wondering if there's something in there that you can utilize to further your own particular position in a possible dispute between the two parties. So in the government, a lot of times we in the contracting profession get very focused on obligation or just getting the contract awarded, so that way the money is turned on and the contractor can start working. But it's a fallacy to think that doing so at the expense of the terms and conditions and the risk management in the contract is a good idea. Because again, we write contracts for the whole purpose of when everything goes wrong. And that in fact is why there is a contracts profession separate from simply being a working person. For instance, if you're an engineer in the for the city and you're working on roads or whatever, it would be a lot easier to just go out and contract with whoever you want to build your road. Where instead of going to a separate procurement shop where those people don't know a whole lot about buying, procuring roads or things of that sort. But the reason there is that separate procurement shop is we are meant to be experts in procurement in the terms and conditions of the contract, in contract law, in business associated with contracts, making good business decisions, and that's really critical to understand. The entire procurement profession is built around that concept of where we might not be technical experts in what we're buying, but fortunately we have technical experts that will help us with that, but we are in fact experts in contractual terms and conditions, in making good business decisions, and doing those sorts of things. So it's very important to understand that. Procurement is a type of contract, and that's the sort of thing obviously we're going to be focusing on in this particular class. There are a couple other types of contracts besides straightforward procurement contracts that we might deal with as government procurement sorts of people. The most notable being a bailment agreement. A bailment is when one person takes control of, one party takes control of somebody else's property, and during that property possession there are some terms and conditions associated with managing that other person's property. For instance, leaving your car in a fee-for-service lot, that is essentially a short-term bailment. We won't talk a whole lot about bailments in this class because the majority of this will be focused on procurement contracts. But procurement is essentially where we're at. there are different sorts of things that we procure, obviously supplies and services being among them. For instance, I happen to be a fan of flowers, so I buy flowers, and that is a supply, as in it's a tangible item. I go, I buy the flowers, I'm done with it. I also buy services in my personal life. For instance, when I want to get my hair cut, I go and someone cuts my hair. It's not a tangible item, it's a result. There's a result of having that service done. So generally speaking, when you buy services, it's important to think of them as getting a result out of it, as opposed to, you know, just some time. Because someone could spend time on my hair, but I might not get the result that I want. So we will be buying in the government sort of our professions. We would buy things like supplies and services. A little bit different than what we buy in our personal lives. The government rarely has a need for flowers or haircuts, but they definitely have a need for janitorial services, cleaning buildings. They definitely have a need for lumber, construction, which is kind of a mix between supply and service, those sorts of things. So when you're buying things for the government, you'll be buying things slightly different from your personal life. Personal transactions are governed by the Uniform Commercial Code, and I typed in quite a bit into the writing below on the Uniform Commercial Code, and I'll probably actually just do a separate segment on that. So I'll go ahead and post this one as the introduction, and then I'll have a separate video coming up shortly on the Uniform Commercial Code and procurement in the commercial world versus the government world.